So anytime I realize like I'm scared of a choice, I ask myself the question, like, is this a decision I'm making based on fear or based on love? Because everything that I want to do in life because it's a love-based decision, because it's something that I love, that I believe in, that I really know is like calling out to me. Because if I choose something to do it based over fear, I'm always going to wonder about it. I'm always going to, like second guess myself and really not feel great about the life that I'm leading.
Welcome back to the show and happy 2024. I hope you all had a chance to relax a little bit, maybe take some time off and be with family and friends over the holiday season. It is amazing how it just goes by in the blink of an eye. And here we are in 24, and there is a lot that is on the horizon for us in the U.S. as 2024 is here. We have a presidential election coming up later this year, and we will be doing a lot more surveying of the SheSpeaks community, as we do all the time, to get their impressions on how the year is going. One quick note before we jump into our great guest for today is we did our prediction survey. We do that every year. We do it in late December, and we ask our SheSpeaks community to tell us what they think is going to be happening in the new year for them. In this case, it was for 2024. And I wanted to share just some tidbits from that. And we'll do another episode where we talk a little bit more about the predictions that the SheSpeaks community had. I did think it was really interesting and pretty consistent with every year. The economy is the number one thing that is going to be on people's minds for 2024. 68% of people saying that that was the number one issue. And number two on the list, also always pretty consistently high, is healthcare, and then specifically people's own personal health. Those tend to be the three top issues: the economy, healthcare, and then your own personal health. We ask women to tell us, do they think that the country's heading in a good direction? Do they think it's heading in a bad direction? Or are they just unsure? And interestingly, the best score that we had on this question was from December of 2020. At that point, 36% of women said that they did not think that the country was heading in a good direction. 24% said yes, and 40% were unsure. And if you are thinking to yourself, well, those aren't very high numbers, that only 24% of people say that the country's heading in the right direction. Interestingly, that's the highest that it's been since we've been asking this question since 2020. And this year, we had 11% of people who said that the country was heading in the right direction. That actually is the lowest that it's been since we've asked this question since 2020. We had 51% of people say that the country is not headed in the right direction. Interestingly, that is not the highest that it's been. The highest that it's been is 58% of people said in August of 2020 that they did not think that the country was headed in the right direction. Yet, if you are now questioning, well, then why is it that we had the lowest level of people saying that the country is heading in the right direction this year, which was 11%, as I mentioned a few minutes ago? It's because we have a higher percentage of people saying that they are unsure. And this year we have 38% of people say that they are unsure about whether the country is heading in the right direction. So that is definitely an increase over the last couple of years, that unsure number, the 38%. We will definitely be keeping an eye on these numbers and sharing more with you as we go, but wanted to give you a little bit of an insight of what people were saying was on their mind moving into 2024 and how they were feeling about the direction of the country. Today, we have a great guest for you. We have another amazing creator influencer, Samery. She is a former Team USA athlete. She has a black belt in Taekwondo, but she also recently started a separate social media account for her rescue work. She has basically two separate accounts that that she has built over time, one for the work she has done as a Team USA athlete in Taekwondo, and then a separate one related to her dog rescue work. If you are someone who is interested in potentially becoming an influencer, becoming a creator, and understanding where to go to make money, how to make money, this is a great episode for you to listen to. Samery talks about which platform is most successful for her, how frequently she posts, how she makes money on the platforms, and she also shares her amazing rescue stories. I really found my conversation with Samery so inspiring. So with that, I'm going to let you hear my conversation with Samery. Again, Happy New Year, and here we go. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today and to talk to you.
Well, first of all, we have to start. We are both dog lovers. We are both involved in dog rescue. I want to talk about a little bit the love you have for huskies, for dogs, but for huskies in particular, and helping to do rescue. How did you get into this?
So it's kind of a fun story. I had two huskies growing up. So when I was a kid, and we kind of just came across them because somebody asked my sister to watch his dog while he went away on a trip for the summer. And like before we had met the dog, it was like this tiny, tiny husky puppy, like super adorable, easy to take care of. And then the day he comes to like bring the dog over, he drops off this like much larger husky. And we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do with it? So, I mean, like, I was pretty young at the time. I didn't know much about dog training or anything. And that dog was insane. Like, we loved him so much, but he would run away all the time. Anytime we tried to take him out on a walk, he would like pull us over and, just like always escaping. I know there were quite a few times we'd get like knocks on the door at like 2 a.m. from the police being like, hey, we found your dog. Or, like phone calls from the grocery store being like, hey, your dog is here visiting us. And so, just like all the typical husky things. And that, like after that, my sister actually ended up giving it away to a different family just because it was more of her dog. And when I grew up, I was just like, I really love that dog. And, I really want to be a good husky owner. I think, we just didn't do the right things and it's okay. Like, we learned. So now I got my own husky puppy when I was ready. I made a big goal. I wanted to be able to buy a townhouse. And once I did that, I'm like, I'm ready. I can do this. And yeah, I got my very first husky puppy and he was definitely insane in his own way, but I was just a lot more prepared for what was to come. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I got a Samoyed. His name is Graham and he's 2 years old now. So my husky's 3 and Samoyed is 2. Oh. And they just taught me a lot about like the husky breed and what you have to do in order for them to be like, good dogs. Now, granted, they still have their crazy side, but now with like the structure and the exercise, they're just angelic dogs. Having done that, it kind of led me into seeing a lot of like the husky world in rescue. Right before my wedding, I saw a Facebook post with 2 huskies that were going to be used. I showed my husband and I'm like, I know we're getting married very soon and then we have a honeymoon, but would you consider, like saving these huskies with me? And we talked a little bit about fostering before. And he's like, sure, but like, how are you going to pick one? And I'm like, wait. I can't just pick one to save. Like, this is both. So my first husky experience was bringing in 2 9-month-old huskies into my house and just having like a crazy time with them, with my dogs, learning all about like introductions and just like what fostering was like. That was about 2 years ago and just learned more since then. Realized I wanted to get more involved, help more, just like in a bigger aspect. And now I'm essentially running Arctic Rescue.
Any tips for people who may be listening about how to do an introduction like that so that the dogs actually get along? Because it is not a given that the dogs are going to get along.
Definitely not. And that's one thing that we always try and really express to like new foster homes is you're bringing in a dog to like save its life. So when you're adopting, yes, you want to get a friend for your dog, but when you're fostering, it's really about helping a dog that, lost its home, that's been in an unfortunate situation. So really, truly about saving its life. If it gets along with your dog, great, but that's not, like why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. So what I usually remind them is like, these dogs need time to decompress. Like, you've taken them from their home or from the shelter, wherever it is, like a chaotic environment. They're very confused as to why they're not home anymore. So they just need time to relax. So usually what I do is I have them in like two completely separate rooms, and they spend the first few days there just like not even acknowledging my dogs, just settling in and just dealing with the fact that they're in a new place. Afterwards, I'll take one of the dogs out along with my husband usually takes one of my dogs, and we'll just walk together. We start off like on opposite sides of the sidewalk. And then, once they stop paying attention to each other, we'll get a little bit closer. And what I'm looking for is neutrality, being okay being around each other and coexisting, but not really caring about each other. Maybe like the next day we'll do a little bit more. And then maybe the next day we'll let them play in the yard a little bit, and just slowly creating a positive environment where they see like all of these happy moments with this other dog rather than a potential for a fight.
That's great advice. And I appreciate that. I want to get into, so you've parlayed this interest and passion you have for animal rescue, for dog rescue, into a very successful social media presence. I want to talk about that in a second, but let's take a step back. You
Okay.
have a whole other side to your amazing achievements. You were a former Team USA member, athlete for Taekwondo. You have a black belt in Taekwondo. Talk to us a little bit about how that all came about.
So I started Taekwondo as a little kid. My family owned a martial arts studio, so I kind of grew up in it. It's funny though, because when I was a teenager, I hated Taekwondo. I was so bad at it. And like one of the things that I eventually made the Team USA in was in fighting and sparring, which just does not speak to my childhood personality at all. Because I was just like a very scared, shy kid. Anytime you put me in the ring, I was just like, ow, this hurts. And like I would freeze. So that all kind of happened. And then when I was going into college, I hit a turning point where I was just like, I talked to my parents and I'm like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And they're like, okay, like, why don't you want to do it? And I thought about it and I realized the reason I didn't want to do it was because I was so scared of it. I didn't think I was good at it. I hated, like fighting against somebody else. And I just had a lot of fear. And I decided I never wanted to let fear be the reason to hold me back from a decision in life. So I'm like, you know what? Let's give it my all. Let's really try and do this. And I just got involved in the best experience of my life. I started training all the time. I went to another country to train. I trained here with my sister, who was my coach actually. And I made the US team 2 years later.
That's amazing. That steep, basically, from not liking it and being scared of it because you were scared of it, to saying, I'm going to confront my fear. And within 2 years, you're making the USA team.
It was all just in the mindset, because I had been developing these skills as a child, but never been able to use them because of, like my mind just controlling it. So yeah, putting that work in for 2 years, and it was a lot of mental work along with the physical. It just made such a huge change. So yes, I made the US team, and then I started competing overseas for 6 years, just traveling everywhere, just wonderful experiences, meeting new people and learning so much about different cultures. And that's kind of what got me into social media.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's talk about this social media. You mentioned this fear that you had, and that you were able to overcome this fear because you made the decision that you did not want to let fear rule the things that you did in your life. You mentioned mindset. Let's say there's something that you're fearing, and it could be a lot of different things. How do you think about mindset as it relates to overcoming a fear you have?
Good question. So I've had to deal with this in a lot of different circumstances. So anytime I realize like I'm scared of a choice, so even deciding to, take more of a leadership role in the rescue, because we had to like restructure and build a new rescue. And there were times where I'm like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I don't really know if I'm any good at this. So maybe I'm not the right person to do it. And I decided, like every single time, just ask myself the question, like, is this a decision I'm making based on fear or based on love? Because everything that I want to do in life because it's a love-based decision, because it's something that I love, that I believe in, that I really know is like calling out to me. Because if I choose something to do it based over fear, I'm always going to wonder about it. I'm always going to, like second guess myself and really not feel great about the life that I'm leading. So I think that question is kind of like my first starting point of being like, what's my path? And then once I decide, okay, I want to make the decision based on love, those like, here are the steps that I need to do to get there.
Wow. I mean, that is a very powerful way to think about it. When you think about these emotions, these really powerful emotions that we all have, fear is a powerful emotion. But
Totally.
love is also a very powerful emotion. And
Exactly.
when you say to yourself, okay, I've made a decision that I don't want to make decisions based on fear. I instead want to make decisions based on love. That is a mindset shift.
It totally is, because it's something that you can always bounce back onto anytime you're like feeling nervous or a little bit fearful. It's something that can like rein you back and be like, no, this is my decision,
I love that. All right. Well, let's now talk about how you have been able to parlay this interest you had, this passion you have for animal rescue and for your dogs into an extremely successful, you've got two separate accounts, but both successful accounts where you share. Well, I'll let you describe. What do you share on your social accounts?
So it's funny, I actually have 3 accounts. I'm a little crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have Life with Snow Dogs. That's my dog account. And that's where I share like all about huskies and all my adventures with my dogs and some of the rescue content as well. And then besides that, I have Samery Morris TKD. And that is my personal account where I share, like motivation, travel, just like lifestyle content. Just more about like, myself in general. And then my third account is Black Belt Samery. And that's where I share a lot of like the tips, techniques. I have an online course platform. So that's kind of like what that funnels into. And that's, just a lot more Taekwondo specific content.
It's interesting because you have these two big passion areas. You have the athletic background, which has been extraordinarily successful for you. And you've been able to take that passion and interest into and convert it into social media success on the one hand. But then you've also have this passion for dogs and dog rescue and your huskies. And you've been able to take that and parlay that into social media success. Let's talk a little bit about how you think about content, because, there's so much content out there. There's so many accounts out there. How do you think about social media content for your accounts that you have?
So how I kind of differentiate is just realizing like, yes, there's a million dog accounts, but the part that's going to make you unique is just telling your story or your viewpoint on it. So I try to focus a lot on storytelling, really explaining who I was and telling my story. I think is what grew my account a lot more, because then people aren't just watching you to like learn something quick and then move on, but they start connecting with you a lot more. So I use that for my Taekwondo accounts. And then when I started my dog accounts, it was more of an experiment. Like over COVID, that's when I got my dog. And, just like, I wanted to say like, hey, I can create an account or I can create a successful account in any passion of mine. I use that the same techniques, the same skills to kind of start growing that audience as well.
So when you think about how your social media kind of plays a role in your life, I know just because I've talked and we've worked with lots of different creators and influencers over the years, that it is so much more work. You talked about creating a good story and the value of storytelling. It is so much harder than it actually looks, right? Because to create a good story, it's almost like this constant process of editing, the thought process of how do I really crystallize this into something that is going to be interesting and valuable for my audience. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what goes into it? Like, how much time do you spend on content creation?
Too much time, I feel like. So I think it's like throughout the day, I'll get different ideas. And so I'll add them into my, I have little Notion apps with all my notes. So I guess my ideas come from things that I'm wondering about, questions that I have, or even
Mhm.
like while I'm looking at other people's social media posts or YouTube videos. And that way, when it's time to like make a post, I mean, I have a content calendar that I kind of follow as well with themes. That way, I don't like just show up and I'm like, I have to do a post today. Like, let's spend these 3 hours figuring it out.
So when you think about monetization of these platforms for yourself, how do you think about monetization?
So I'll start off with my Taekwondo account because that's kind of been like the biggest revenue that I've gotten. That's going to be based off of course sales. So I
Mhm.
created, so yes, I give a lot of free content online, but people want to buy like an actual course they can follow. So I created
Mhm.
like a course on how to kick higher, one on how to like learn a bow staff and things like that. And then so you can either buy a course from me or you can sign up for my membership platform for access to everything. And that's like a monthly recurring kind of like a revenue. So I have both of those options. And then I have a couple products I sell as well on there. So that's kind of how I monetize the Taekwondo content. I'll do like one-off brand sponsorships, but mainly just the courses are the biggest thing for me. YouTube AdSense, so like YouTube ad monetization, I have that on as well.
Mhm.
That's all the Taekwondo stuff. And then for my dog channel and my lifestyle channel, I mostly just do brand sponsorships.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like all that I've gotten into. I mean, I have like the YouTube ad revenue as well from my dog content, but mostly
Mhm.
just those two. And then starting next year, I want to launch some kind of also just like an e-product or something to start leaning more towards that on the dog content. 'Cause reality is like it's what I do more of now. I spend most of my day with my dogs. I love creating the dog content and I love speaking to like other husky owners.
We work with a lot of pet influencers and pet creators. And I have to tell you, I have 3 dogs, and there is no way I could get any of my dogs to do these things. It is not simple because you're basically the dog is the talent in some
Mhm.
respect, or you're trying to get the dog to do certain things. What is that process like for you of trying to get your dogs to do whatever it is that you're doing in this story you're telling?
So it's funny because the other day I was watching this whole TikTok of this girl with like her Aussie, and they do like this 3-minute routine where the dog is like doing this dance choreography with the person, and I'm like looking at them like because the dog's being perfect, like running backwards through her legs, jumping over stuff, just like to the lyrics and everything. And I show my husband, and I'm like, all I want is for my dogs to not pull me on the leash while we're walking. Like, what I'm asking from them here. And this girl has it like doing handstands and backflips. So obviously, dogs are all talented in different ways. But with my dogs, I guess it's not so much about forcing them to do something that like isn't for them, but rather using the personalities that they already have. So
Mhm.
my dogs, I mean, you see like the husky videos all over, like they destroy stuff, they're talking back to you, like just showcasing their personalities, right?
Mhm.
And I guess with my dogs, like if I want them to be in a photo, I work on that a lot off screen. I work on their training a lot, like sit, stay, and then, like lean down, like sit down as if I had a camera in my hand, and then go back and give them a treat. So lots of off screen training. That way it's not as frustrating when I'm
Mm.
trying to get them to do something on
Right.
purpose. But
Right.
also, like I said, for the reels and everything, just really showcasing their personalities and not trying to get them to be, like a perfect obedient dog, but rather just it's who they are and making the story about that.
One of the things that is so inspiring to me, creators and influencers are doing is they are so good at understanding their audience because they're interacting with their audience, their followers all the time. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about your followers and how you want to engage with them?
Yeah, so it has to definitely be a two-sided relationship. So a lot of the times when you post, people comment. You have to engage in that conversation. Otherwise, you're kind of training your audience to like leave a comment. But guess what? The person's not going to respond to you. So next time around, they might not be as like as pulled to leave a comment. So
Mhm.
I would say anytime somebody leaves a comment, always read it, always respond. I always like to ask people about their dogs because, I mean, if they love my dog so much, I want to learn about theirs too. And they're happy to share pictures and everything.
Mhm.
So ever since the beginning, I've always just tried to make sure that it's a conversation.
And that is one of the things that I think ultimately differentiates the people who have long-term staying power with their audience is is a desire to understand who they are and and they genuinely want to engage with them. What is one thing that would surprise people about being a creator and influencer?
I know everyone says like you don't have to be perfect at it to start, but honestly, like all of my content that's done well or that started off doing well before I kind of expected it to or I knew what I was doing are things that I just stopped thinking about and just did it anyway. And then just learn from it because like we said, there's a lot of content that goes out there. If you post something that doesn't do great, it's okay. Get back on it and try the next one. Like not everything has to be perfect. You're going to learn from it. If something totally flops, that's okay. Just put it out there, see what happens because funny enough, like a lot of my best performing content has been the ones I just stopped getting in my way of and just, like threw it out there and just said like, okay, this is what it is and let's move on to the next one.
So where do you see this going for you?
There's a lot that I want to do. So like I have lots of like 5-year goals and everything. I really like public speaking. So hoping to do a lot more of that, just helping motivate others in different kind of areas. So with Taekwondo, one thing that I'm working on is I really want to write a book on fear. And it comes from just like all the lessons that I learned from martial arts.
Mm.
So definitely want to write that book. I want to keep growing my course platform and bringing in other martial artists to start teaching on there as well to kind of also like help other creators that might be smaller but know a lot about their martial arts skills. So there's that part. And then as far as dogs, I really want to experiment with other monetization areas. There's a lot of like products that I've always been like, oh, I really wish that this existed to like use for my dogs or just like so little products and then lots of education on husky ownership. So I'm also working on like a short ebook on my first husky guide, just like everything that I wish I would have known when I got my husky puppy. And what else was there for rescue? I really just want to keep growing our rescue. And I know it's something separate, but at the same time, I do a lot of it like on my social media as well, because I want to help build that audience. But it would be amazing to eventually, like be able to get a physical building and just keep growing that.
I'm so excited for you and all the possibilities that lay ahead. Sammy, if people want to follow you, where is the best place for them to do that?
I guess it depends on what they're most interested in.
Mm.
So I would say either if you love dogs or love huskies, follow me at Life with Snow Dogs. If you like learning about travel and social media and whatever lifestyle things, Samery Morris TKD on Instagram. And if you want to learn about Taekwondo, Black Belt Samery.
Congratulations for all of your success. I am looking forward to continuing to watch your success as you go.
Thanks so much. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thank you for listening. If you're an influencer or a brand that wants to work with us, please feel free to email us at info@shespeaks.com. Until next time.